That lost his father. Let's pray, colleagues. I think there's still one more institution, the Regent's School. Two more. Eastern, I've announced. Zenith, I've announced. Thank you. On a side note, this is coming from Honorable Comrade Chinedu Oga. It is with great sadness that I reach out to you today in response to the death of Honorable Tobias Chukwuemeka, former member representing Ezza South Federal Constituency in the 7th Assembly 2011-2015, who died after a brief illness on Friday, 27th February 2020 at 9:30 p.m. in Niger Foundation Hospital. I would humbly like to request for a 1 minute silence. Signed, Honorable Comrade Chinedu. Again, on the side note, I wish to announce the passing of the father of one of our colleagues, Honorable Magajidau. He lost his father 2 days ago. Clerk. I wish to request that we rise for the 1 minute silence in honor and pray for the souls of the departed. Thank you. May the soul rest in perfect peace. Let's welcome any member who has petition to present to the House. May please rest to do so. Yes, sir.
The Right Honorable Speaker, honorable colleagues, my name is Gaza Jonathan Befi, and I represent the people of Karu, Kefi, Kokona Federal Constituency of Nasarawa State. I rise to present a petition from one Nigerian, Findike Jobless, against Shell Petroleum Development Company for gross injustice and oppressive acts to his person and refusal to pay him his due. I wish to present the petition.
Please go ahead.
Mr. Speaker, I am Honorable Comrade Chinedu Oga, representing Ezza South Federal Constituency. Mr. Speaker, I have a petition from my constituency, the petition for dismissal of soldier operating in Medugri. And these young men from my constituency have fought gallantly to make sure there is security in that place, but it's uncalled for that they were dismissed on just cause. And one of the officers there told them that they are not rightful to be in this position, and that is why they were dismissed. And there is a petition before for me to tender to the House.
Any member who has a matter of urgent public importance is Honorable Eden.
Mr. Speaker, distinguished colleagues, my name is Idem Unyime, member representing Ukanafun, Orogonam Federal Constituency in Akwa Ibom State. Mr. Speaker, this morning, distinguished colleagues, I rise to present motion of urgent public importance that borders on the need for emergency response and tackling of the deadly coronavirus in Nigeria. Mr. Speaker, there is need for immediate response to this situation. I want to seek your leave to move that this matter be taken as urgent public importance. I so move, Mr. Speaker.
Seconder. Yes, leader.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I remain Honorable Ndidi Godwin Elmelu, and I represent the good people of Anyocho Shimili Federal Constituency. I'm from Delta State. I rise to second the motion and the request made by my colleague, Honorable Edem, as so second.
Honorable Edem, please go ahead and present your motion.
Mr. Speaker, distinguished colleagues,
Those in favor of the motion say aye. Those against say nay. The ayes have it. Go ahead and present your motion, please.
thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. My name once again remains Idem Unyime, member representing Ukanafun, Orogonam Federal Constituency in Akwa Ibom State. The need for emergency response and tackling of deadly coronavirus in Nigeria. The House aware that Nigeria, Africa's most
Honorable, you
populous
are
nation,
distracting the speaker.
has recorded
Honorable
its
colleague.
first case.
Honorable, you are distracting the speaker, please. Hello? Honorable member, please. You are distracting the speaker.
Okay. The House aware that Nigeria, Africa's most populous nation, has recorded its first case of deadly coronavirus disease, which was diagnosed in Lagos State. The case was confirmed on the 27th day of February 2020 by the Minister of Health, Dr. Osagi Ehinere. The victim is an Italian citizen who works in Nigeria and returned from Milan, Italy to Lagos, Nigeria on the 25th day of February 2020. He was confirmed at the Virology Laboratory of the Lagos University Teaching Hospital, part of the laboratory network of the Nigeria Center for Disease Control, and is the first case to be reported in Nigeria since the beginning of the outbreak in China, January this year. Further aware that the coronaviruses are a large family viruses that cause illness, ranging from the common cold to more severe diseases such as Middle East respiratory syndrome and severe acute respiratory syndrome. A novel coronavirus is a new strain that has not been previously identified in humans. Note that the hemorrhagic disease was first diagnosed in the city of Wuhan in China, with a population of 11 million residents, and has spread to over 58 countries, still counting since that time. The coronavirus killed over 3,000 people and infected over 91,000 globally. The outbreak was declared a public health emergency international concern on January 30th, 2020, and was immediately reported to the World Health Organization country office in China. The main reason for the declaration of concern is that the virus will spread to countries with a weaker health system. Aware that the Federal Ministry of Health emergency notification to the public that the coronavirus influenza outbreak this time is very serious and fatal and is highly contagious. The symptoms of coronavirus may appear as soon as 2 days and as long as 14 days, according to Center for Disease Control. Worried that the socio-economic implication of the outbreak COVID-19 in Nigeria can be very disastrous. This can be threatening to the lives of about 200 million Nigerians. Hence, events have been cancelled and rescheduled as the disease ravages the world. Concern that with the current situation of health facilities in Nigeria, the virus, if not properly checked or curtailed, will easily be transmitted within the large population and may lead to a wider catastrophe. Note that the federal government needs to move swiftly and intensify collaborations with health agencies to nip it in the bud at this early stage of the outbreak of the infection in the country. The House resolved to 1. Mandate the leadership of the National Assembly to set up an ad hoc committee to interface with the executive, health agencies, and institutions with a view to overcoming and eliminating the dreaded novel coronavirus recently brought into the country. 2. Urge the federal government to release more emergency funds and create enabling environments and support to the Federal Ministry of Health and other health agencies and institutions in a bid to completely overcome and eliminate the threat of the novel coronavirus. 3. Immediate activation of all centers established and designated for the treatment and management of Ebola cases in the country for the management of suspected cases of victims of COVID-19. 4. Urge the Federal Ministry of Health and relevant agencies to further intensify surveillance at all international borders and ports of entry through the provision of more thermal machines, infrared thermometers for temperature screening, and deployment of personnel to conduct the screening and quarantine services on all inbound passengers to the country. Risk communication should further be intensified. More massive awareness creation and sensitization meetings should further be conducted through the use of electronic media. The NBC should continue to mandate all government and private-owned television and radio stations to dedicate at least 15 minutes every day to create more awareness on COVID-19. More information, education, and communication materials should be produced by the Federal Ministry of Health and distributed across the country, while community engagement and social mobilization should further be intensified by the Federal Ministry of Information and relevant agencies. Laboratory services should further be expanded in the country. The establishment of more functional public health laboratories, at least 2 in each of the 6 geopolitical zones, should be made for quick confirmation of cases. 7. More functional isolation centers should be designated to at least 2 in each of the geopolitical zones for quarantine and management of suspected cases. Adequate personnel protective equipment should be provided for the health workers. More drugs and medication needed for supportive care should be provided at the designated isolation centers, while more respirators should also be provided at the isolation centers. Enough oxygen should be recirculated in all our health facilities, especially the emergency and intensive care units. Mandate the House Committee on Health Services and Health Institutions to ensure strict compliance and implementation of the resolution and report back within 4 weeks for further legislative action. Mr. Speaker, distinguished colleagues, I so move.
Yes, Chairman, Public Procurement.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. My name is Nasir Ali Ahmed. I represent Nasara Federal Constituency and I'm from Kano State. Mr. Speaker, I believe this motion is very, very timely. I believe my honorable colleague has said almost all that has to be said. Apart from the part that, Mr. Speaker,
I thought you are seconding because...
Oh, I thought I was contributing to this bit. I'm so sorry.
Thank you.
I rise to second the motion as moved by my honorable colleague. I so second.
He was too elaborate. That's why you thought that he was leading the debate. Honorable, let him lead the debate.
Mr. Speaker, distinguished colleagues, my name once again is Ide Munime, member representing Ukana-Funoro-Wenam Federal Constituency in Akwa Ibom State. Mr. Speaker, distinguished colleagues, it is no longer news that what we feared most has come over us, and that is coronavirus disease. It's here in the country. And when we first heard the news that as was announced in China, I think that was on the 20th of January, we thought as a country that we'll be able to prevent it from coming into our country. But unfortunately, it has entered the country. And there is nothing we can do than for us to rise to this challenge as the people's representative, that we have the mandate of our people to make good law that will guarantee lives and safety of our constituents. Mr. Speaker, I think, in my opinion, just like I read in the motion, there is serious need as a parliament, as the people representative, for the leadership of the National Assembly to set up a committee that comprises of the senators and members of House of Reps, a joint committee to look into this matter, to interface with the executive, to play oversight function on all health institutions, all the agencies, so that this matter can be controlled. Because if we don't do this, it's going to spread like wildfire across the entire country. And that will not be good for our economy. That will not be good for the lives of the people that we represent. So on this note, I want to appeal to my colleagues to see this matter as a very urgent one. I want to appeal to them to support this motion to sail through so that immediate action can be taken right here in the chamber. Mr. Speaker, distinguished colleagues, I so submit. Thank you.
Honorable Luga.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Respected colleague, my name is Honorable Taiwo Luga. I represent all the people of Irewole Federal Constituency. Mr. Speaker, I am from Osun State. I rise this morning to support the motion moved by my colleague to curtail and to see how we control the outspread of coronavirus. I lend my voice to him that mechanism should be put in place to control it before it goes out of hands. That the committee should start the work without delay. There should be awareness of how to clean our environment and to take proper care. If you take note of any symptoms, there are symptoms of the coronavirus. Once we notice the symptoms, how to make sure that the person involved is being taken proper care of. And also, Mr. Speaker, I would like us to take our campaign and awareness, especially to the rural places. Our people at the grassroots, they should be aware of this disease. Most of them, they might not have heard about it. There is need for the committee and for health institutions, especially the primary health care, to start the awareness without delay. On this note, Mr. Speaker, I support that the motion be taken as urgent and measures to be put in place. Thank you, sir.
Rusaka.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker, for that kind consideration. I am Rep. Isiaka Ayokunle Ibrahim. I represent the very good people of Ifo, Ewekoru, sorry for Ewekoru Federal Constituency. I'm from Ogun State. Mr. Speaker, I first of all want to salute the courage of my honorable colleague who brought to the attention of the entire nation, in fact the world, to this momentum period of ours as a country. When I said I'm from Ifo Ewekoru, I thought people would look at my direction. Yes. Because the Italian the Italian came to Ewekoru, which happens to be one of the local governments in my federal constituency, Mr. Speaker. But my worry here, Mr. Speaker, is that so sad in this country from time immemorial, we have been talking about risk factors, such that somebody arrived to this country from Lagos to Ewekoro cement factory, where the man went. It's 54 kilometers from Lagos.
Point of order, leader.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I remain Honorable Ndudi Godwin Elmelu, and I represent the good people of Anyocho Shimili Federal Constituency. I'm from Delta State. Mr. Speaker, I come under privileges. Order 6, Rule 2. Mr. Speaker, if you recall, it was all over everywhere in the news that what has recorded in Nigeria today that will have coronavirus is from Ogun State. Not only from Ogun State, it is from an Italian man who visited Ogun State, and it turned out to be the constituency of Isiaka that is speaking. Mr. Speaker, I'm coming to something, Mr. Speaker. It's very worrisome, and I think, Mr. Speaker, in good wisdom, that this House should suspend plenary for a period of 2 weeks or thereabout, for the purpose of certifying everybody, and also allowing management to put measures in place so that all of us can be tested. Because we may be taking it as a very joking matter, but it's a very serious matter. And I think that this House should take it as a very serious matter. Otherwise, you will not know who you will be shaking. To add up to that, sir, the driver, the man that was with the Italian, has gone into oblivion. He cannot be seen. It's possible that he's hiding in Seka's house. But I don't want to preempt that. But honestly, joke apart, I think that the management and National Assembly should take measures to ensure that this matter is taking the seriousness that it deserves. I so submit.
Well, leader, you just did the PDP style, come through the back door to introduce or to give out their own contribution. But I thought you should allow Isiaka to learn, while I appreciate the concern that this is a very serious matter, and we should also take it serious. Isiaka, you may proceed with that contribution.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker, for that kind of protection. Of course, I'm sure the leader probably was in Lagos and may have had contact with the Italian man. Maybe that's why. Sir, what I'm trying to say, sir, from time immemorial, because this concerns all of us, when we talk about risk factor, there are 3 basic things we should always be looking at. We look at the elimination stage, we look at mitigation stage, and eventually, which is the last point, which is the control. Unfortunately, in this country, everything has so been decimated that we only jump at the control side, and that is when everybody becomes proactive instead of being reactive. At the port of entry for this gentleman, and I want us to take this seriously, at the point of entry right at Ikeja International Airport, and this fellow had stayed for 48 hours everywhere before he eventually went to WAPO, where, of course, so I was told, he is a consultant with WAPO. WAPO is in Ewekoro, that's the cement factory in Ewekoro, before he eventually went there. So within 48 hours, this same gentleman, of course, I'm not trying to say any bad thing about him. That's what God, Allah, brought to him. But he now imported it to our country. But the essence of my argument now, and why I'm trying to support this motion that the whole House should overwhelmingly give it an overwhelming support, is simply because we should always look more at preventive measures. That's to be proactive, not to wait to the point of being reactive. The facilities are not here in this country. The last time the National Control of Disease came, fortunately, Mr. Speaker was there to visit the health services. We had a joint meeting. At the meeting, they were challenged about the control disease centers in this country. The gentleman told us here, which was not more than a month ago, in this country that there are only 2 control centers, one in Lagos, one in Abuja. That of Abuja, we were told, is less than 30% completion. Even the one in Lagos, the same man was challenged by a honorable member that it was not built by the Federal Republic of Nigeria, by the government of Nigeria. That place was constructed and equipped by the Lagos state government. So apparently, Nigeria is standing at zero as far as at the federal level, any disease control and mitigating or elimination factors are concerned. So I want to appeal that this is a wake-up call for all of us. We are just talking about coronavirus here today. We don't know, God forbid. What again after coronavirus? We were once on Ebola, we were once on this and that. Of course, we thank God that they've been able to...
Thank you. I think we should limit ourselves to the rules we have set for ourselves. Every person contributing should not exceed 2 minutes. That will enable members. Thank you.
Concord and supported by the House. Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker, sir.
Then I move to the next room.
Thank you, Right Honorable Speaker, and my distinguished colleagues for this opportunity. Mr. Speaker and my colleagues, we are now faced with our worst fears. Here in chambers, we shut down a motion to bring back our brothers and sisters in Wuhan. Why did we bring down that motion? For fear of not having it in the country. Let it not come because we are not prepared. Finally, our fears have caught up with us. We saw where ministers were priding themselves that Nigeria was ready. Nigeria was ready for the coronavirus. Probably that was the invitation that was given to the virus to come. And what was it that made them ready? They were wearing face masks that were not certified. As far as I'm concerned, I don't know how effective those face masks were. And who were the ministers? Ministers who may have absolutely nothing to do with the prevention of coronavirus. Probably because certain amount may have been budgeted. I don't want to go into that. Even when a minister in charge was addressing the world, the kind of seat, Mr. Speaker, that he was seated on shows the world how ready Nigeria is. It simply means that we're not prepared for anything. Therefore, there is urgent need for all hands to be on deck. The period of incubation for this virus has even been extended beyond 14 days. So if we talk about somebody passing through a system that you set up, probably a computerized thermometer, if he is a carrier, probably 2-3 days old, he can walk around in entire Nigeria without showing symptoms. The incubation period is about 20-something days now as we speak. We don't even have enough literature, we don't have enough information about this virus. It simply means that we should sit up. We should be more proactive. Here in this assembly, as you walk in, there is nothing to check any man who is symptomatic even. If somebody is symptomatic, you can walk from the gate and walk past all the security checks, get into offices, and you go back without being detected. We don't have one single thermometer anywhere around this complex. Mr. Speaker, are we ready for what is coming to us? The answer is no. I want to urge my colleagues, let us look at this country, make decisions, make contributions that will indeed better the future of this country and that of our children. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Well, while I appreciate that contribution, sorry, I want to intervene a little bit because let us not create a hopeless kind of situation in the country. I believe you are aware the man that came from Italy was taken to a quarantine place, and there has been constant report from the authority in terms of his situation and condition. I want to believe they are doing their best. Two, you are aware, you may be aware, some suspected Chinese came into the country through one aircraft into my own constituency, Wasi. And because of apprehension, people raised alarm because one of them was sick. And I can tell you that they were tested and results have been out. So let's not create a situation as if the country is not doing. Not that we are doing our best as a country, but I think there is need for caution and again education. Thank you. Honorable Ali Ahmad.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker, for giving me another opportunity to talk. My name is Nasir Ali Ahmed. I represent Nasarawa Federal Constituency, and I'm from Kano State. Mr. Speaker, indeed this motion is timely, but my main concern, Mr. Speaker, am I protected, Mr. Speaker? My main concern, Mr. Speaker, is the issue of isolation centers. We currently have, Mr. Speaker, we currently have only 3 isolation centers in Nigeria. There's one in Yaba, in Lagos, one in Abuja, and the other one in Edo State. The one in Abuja, Mr. Speaker, is a 15-bed isolation center with a maximum capacity of 30 people. The one in Yaba is also 30-bed capacity isolation center. I do not know the capacity of the one in Edo, but Mr. Speaker, Nigeria is the most populated country in Africa with a population of 200 million people. And we have only 3 isolation centers that will take a total of 100 people, maximum. Mr. Speaker, it will be a tragedy. And God forbid, if anything happens, and we need to isolate 1,000 people, 5,000 people, 10,000 people, what do? China built a 50 to 100,000 isolation center in less than a week, Mr. Speaker. And coming back to what the minority leader said, Mr. Speaker, I am taking it seriously. It is not a laughing matter. Because, Mr. Speaker, in Iran, the vice president contacted coronavirus. 2 of the cabinet members have died as of yesterday from coronavirus. So it shows you, irrespective of status or where we are, anybody can have it. So I quite agree with the minority leader. If he says members should be screened, if he says there must be a control center or whatever within the National Assembly, I agree with him, Mr. Speaker. So, Mr. Speaker, I thank you very, very much for giving me the opportunity to talk.
Dr. Sununu.
Mr. Speaker, I'm Honorable Dr. Yusuf Tanko Sununu, member representing Ingaski Shangai Awuri Federal Constituency. Mr. Speaker, I'm from Kebbi State. Mr. Speaker, let me start by commending and thanking the entire members for the interest so far shown on the incidents and happenings surrounding coronavirus in the country. As we are all aware, we have an index case that is currently undergoing management. Mr. Speaker, I share the concern expressed entirely by the members. However, I want to also say that since the diagnosis of coronavirus infection in the country, the Nigeria Center of Disease Control has done so much as in doing much to ensure that this country is safe. I quite agree that the isolation centers are so far very few. We need more. And I also quite agree that people need to understand between the differences between isolation and quarantine. People can be quarantined based on the fact that from the history of where they are coming, they can be kept in a particular place to monitor the signs, symptoms of a particular disease, especially infectious disease over time. When the incubation period is over and none of them develop symptoms, they will be allowed to go. We also have isolation. isolation is usually done on a defined case, a confirmed case, so as to protect the generality of the public, to stop them from interacting with a case, to minimize the rate of infection, so that we can curtail it very easily. And for the person that has tested positive, I can assure you he was quarantined, he is under isolation and is receiving treatment. And let me also say, contact tracing of virtually those that he has come along with has been so far wonderful. And in fact, in the history of medical practice in Nigeria, there was no period we had better contact tracing than now. As at briefing this morning, almost 51 contact that had contact outside the airport with the index case have already been contacted and they are under quarantine. But the only issue that we have, which is a major problem, and I think I also want to use this opportunity to call on all of us as Nigerians to safeguard our life. In the manifest of the airlines, most of the contact numbers used could not be traced to the owners of those numbers. So this is another angle to difficulty in tracing those who are supposed to be contacted so that they can be quarantined to ensure that they are not carrying the disease and they can the virus and they cannot spread it to others. Now, on the index case also, in terms of training, I'm sure Center of Disease Control has done a lot to build the capacity of health workers in terms of the ability to diagnose, treat, and manage cases of coronavirus. And not only that, they have developed public useful information pamphlets so that each and every individual will have access to know and have a self-education on how he can take care of himself. I quite agree that the prayers as this symbol, but I also need to say that we need to add there is need for an urgent creation of more isolation centers. I quite believe in an infectious disease that is unpredictable like coronavirus, you cannot predict the outcome or the cause of that particular disease. So the only way for us is to make sure we are prepared and we are ready. And I also want to thank this House for passing a resolution that the procurement activities of Ministry of Health should be restored to it with immediate effect. Because this is the major hampering situation as far as the fight of coronavirus is concerned. Because the Ministry of Health, as it is today, cannot procure anything without recourse to the Federal Ministry of Agriculture. This has further worsened the ability of the Ministry and Center for Disease Control to get available needed materials adequately and timely. So I therefore want to thank all those that contributed to, and also to let us also remember our various constituencies. This is a time that we should intensify effort in educating our people. Virtually all of us from our own area, we have different WhatsApp group, we are in different Facebook group. Let us encourage people to take care of their personal and community hygiene, because if we intensify on that, the possibility of the organism getting widespread may be limited. And I do hope that those stakeholders will also increase in their effort as far as the prevention and control of coronavirus is concerned in the country. Thank you.
Honorable Shetima.
Mr. Speaker, sir, honorable colleagues, I am Lawan Shetima Ali, representing Ursari Gaidam Unusari Federal Constituency. Mr. Speaker, I rise to align with the mover and subsequent contributors to this very timely motion. Mr. Speaker, honorable colleagues, this issue of coronavirus, from all indications, is getting out of hand, but Nigeria were very fortunate up to this moment that no new case has been reported, though there are some quarantine yet to be known. But I believe for now, we must praise Almighty Allah for the situation we are in. Notwithstanding, Mr. Speaker, there's need for government to intensify efforts towards providing enough means of enlightening, educating Nigerians, particularly the grassroots level. As been said by Doctor, we have constituencies. And there is need even to introduce the old-time sanitary inspectors, practically going around communities, informing them of the danger of this contagious disease. We have Lassa fever at home, and coronavirus has been, imported into Nigeria now. There has to be very high way of educating our people. We have to commend the effort of our government by having so many things in place, particularly the isolation, the testing, and what have you, but yet more has to be done. Our attentions are only focused on the entrance into the nation through the airports, seaports, despite the fact that borders are being closed, but the movement of men and women across the borders should also be given attention, particularly cross-border communities, as we are having through Nigeria Republic, Chad, Cameroon, Benin, and others. So in this regard, Mr. Speaker, honorable colleagues, the government should put more effort to educate Nigerians on this deadly disease. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Chiloka.
Thank you, Right Honorable Speaker, honorable colleagues. My name is Obina Chidoka, representing Idemili North, Idemili South Federal Constituency of Anambra State. Right Honorable Speaker, honorable colleagues, I've listened to some of the comments of my colleagues, and I really want to say that as my person, as an honorable member, and not speaking for the House, I want to first and foremost, let's commend the Ministry of Health so far on the work they've done so far. If you remember, it was this same set of people and within Nigeria that when Ebola came into Nigeria, that they were able to stem it and able to control Ebola. And we got commendation from countries all over the world, including the US. Secondly, we must commend the processes they've taken so far. And the third is that as a legislature, we should not abdicate our responsibility. We should not be here also to seem to criticize what is going on when we should be taking certain steps and certain functions to make sure that we protect the lives of Nigerians. And what have I said by that? We should immediately, as a House of the People, get involved in what is going on. We should invite the necessary agencies, the Ministry of Health, the agencies involved in this whole process, and they will come here and tell us what the issues are. Just as a legislature also, we should be able to make sure that we provide them with the enabling environment. If it's funding they need, we can abridge the law because we are the lawmakers, and make sure we give them the necessary funding they require. And then they will tell us the processes that are taking so far. When we do all this, we are sure that we are part of the process and we are on top of the situation. I do not like some of the things I've heard here today. It is like us on the streets. We are not on the streets. We are the ones who have the law. We are the ones who are on top of the situation. We are the ones who should say what happens. We are like the agenda setters. I shouldn't be part of a legislation that be pointing fingers. What I think we should be doing here is to call the Minister of Health. Let him come and stay here and tell us what they've done so far. Do they require more funds? Yes, they do. In America, some of them that are quarantined in their houses, not in any isolation center. There are certain things that must be taken. Even this one, we've taken a law that we should leave them in other countries. When they bring them back in America, they are in one center, in one city they created for them to be there. Even America is under criticism that even their function, their system are not at par with what China is doing. We do not have a $4 trillion budget like America does. Neither do we have a $5 trillion budget like like China has. But whatever we have, we should be able to abridge it, give funding to the ministry, commend them for the work they've done so far. Their lives are in danger too. When we commend them, then we'll come here and tell them, outside the ministries, there is no other place that people go to in Nigeria like the National Assembly. Go outside there and see lots of people. So also we'll let them know that they need to come here also and begin testing, just like they do in the ports, and they do everywhere. And then what do? We'll mandate the relevant committees in this house to immediately start carrying strict oversight functions. We will not give them a penny and will not know how they spend that money. Not that we'll give them money to buy masks or to buy whatever they need and then we don't find it anywhere. They must strictly, and if care is not taken, on a daily basis, give us an update, either through our website or through our social media handles or whatever it is. Mr. Speaker, this is my contention this morning, and I think that our colleagues should be able to, let's sit up. We are the legislature for crying out loud, and we shouldn't be sitting here to criticize other people. Thank you very much.
Engineer Marin.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. My dear colleagues, Engineer Solomon Marin is my name, and I represent the good people of Mangubo Kosfera constituency. Mr. Speaker, I am from the home of peace and tourism, Plateau State. Mr. Speaker, I rise to lend my voice on this very, very important motion that is not only timely, but very, very needful at the moment. And secondly, Mr. Speaker, I want to adopt the contributions of my colleagues as if they were mine, because a lot of them are very extensive. Mr. Speaker, I think what we need as a country, like one of my colleagues has just said, is that we need to be proactive. We need to be proactive. Mr. Speaker, if you move from one state or one region of this country to the other, most especially majority of our people who move are moved by road. There is no any surveillance center along any of these routes. And that if anybody who has come in contact with an infected person is passing through this from one state to the other, there is no any provisions anywhere along this route that will dictate an infected person so that he can be quarantined immediately wherever he is to protect other people from being infected. There is nothing like that. Mr. Speaker, we also need to know exactly what the Ministry of Health is doing. But Mr. Speaker, before then, the Ministry of Health need to coordinate the 36 states of this country and the FCT and the 774 local governments together so that we can all be on the same page. Otherwise, we are working only in Lagos, we are working only in Abuja, and majority of Nigeria is exposed to infection. Mr. Speaker, based on this, I want to move an amendment to the submissions of my colleague to say that this parliament do urge the federal government to convene an emergency National Council on Health where all stakeholders are involved so that they will acquaint the health workers with measures that have already been put in place and those to be put in place across the country, across the 36 states and the 774 local governments to curtail further spread of this disease to any part of this country. And I think, Mr. Speaker, it is only when such a council has been held that the minister can appear before this council to brief, can appear before this very honorable house to brief us on what they have agreed to put in place as a country that will help us. Mr. Speaker, I must also commend the Plateau State government for the proactive measure they have carried out in trying to stop any infection from coming into Plateau State. When they knew that there were people who came into the state from somewhere where they do not know their destination and they knew where they headed to, they made sure that they brought those people together. And anybody that has come in contact with these people, and they took them into a safe place and ensured that they went through tests until they certify that they were okay. Mr. Speaker, they didn't stop that at just being okay. They are still under surveillance even as we speak. Mr. Speaker, if we have this across the country, we are going to go a long way in solving this matter like we solved the Ebola crisis when it came to this country. I thank you very much, Mr. Speaker, for the opportunity I saw submit. Thank you.
Yes. Speaker Ibi.
Mr. Speaker, sir, honorable colleagues, my name is Tijani Zana Zakaria. I represent the entire people of Guru, Machina, Yuspari, and Karasua Federal Constituency. I'm from Yobe State. I rise to support the motion heavily brought by my friend and colleague because this motion is timely and people have spoken on this matter. This issue before the House is a very serious issue. Mr. Speaker, we know coronavirus is deadly, but there is one deadlier disease which is known to all of us, that is Lassa fever. The publicity and the coverage given to this coronavirus is very wide, but people tend to forget the Lassa fever. But doctors among us here knew that Lassa fever is more deadlier. When dealing with this one, I want to urge my colleagues to bring the issue of Lassa fever, because these two diseases are deadly. So I really appreciate my chairman House Center of the Disease Control, and from there we will ask all the necessary questions and do everything we could within our limit to see that we tackle this menace. And issue brought by the minority leader to at least take some serious measure in either within or outside the chambers to prevent the legislators is a very welcome development. Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. Thank you.
Yes, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. My name is Chike Okafo. I represent the people of Yimembano, Izuboma, Obo Federal Constituency. I'm from Imo State. Mr. Speaker, I want to thank the mover of the motion. Thank him immensely for coming up with this very proactive motion. And also want to thank the chairman of Healthcare Services for that briefing. I'm aware that at 3 p.m. the committee will be meeting with the relevant agencies, all in the view to look at what input we can make as the people's members of legislature to lend our support to the government in this very serious, very serious matter. Mr. Speaker, on a lighter mood, I have come to, I don't know how many of us remember that line in our old national anthem that says that though tongues and tribes may differ, in brotherhood we stand. Mr. Speaker, I have come to understand that there are three very important issues that unite us much more than anything else in this country. One is security concerns. Once the issues of insecurity comes up in any part of this country, you will find that everybody, irrespective of your tribe, religion, or language, comes to speak one language. What do we do to ensure the safety of our lives? Mr. Speaker, the second factor, the second issue is football. I have come to understand that once a national team is playing, representing us in any tournament, all of us from across the length and breadth of the country will come together and pray to the same God, one God, that we may win. The third one is health emergency, like this one. Unfortunately, it doesn't know whether you're a big man, whether you are a poor man. It doesn't see whether you are from the northeast, northwest, north central, southeast, southwest, or south-south. So I want to thank us for finding this issue as a point of unity to speak with one language and call on the Federal Ministry of Health to ensure that everything is done humanly possible. I was listening to Chidoka. Chidoka's concern and worry is that even we here in National Assembly were not safe. Nobody is safe anywhere. So I want to thank the mover of the motion. I want to thank the committee chairman. In the next 2 hours, we'll be going in for that meeting to ensure that we do all that is humanly possible to see that we are safe as a country and that our people are also safe. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Lastly, Honorable Deputy Whip.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Honorable colleagues, I am Kiru Kaonye Georgia. I represent the good people of Isukwatu Munich Federal Constituency. Mr. Speaker, honorable colleagues, I am from Abia State. Mr. Speaker, honorable colleagues, a lot has been said about this COVID-19 issue that we are facing now. But I want to say something here. Nigerians, we joke with everything. We have even gone ahead to bring what they call coronavirus greeting. Sincerely, we said that we do not have facilities in place to evacuate our citizens from China. When we know that that place, they are taking care of them, they are quarantining their people, our people will maybe be better off until we get ready. And then all over the social media, oh, we are buying vehicles. We don't care about our citizens that is residing outside Nigeria. And that is to tell you the way our mind functions. It is very sad. We are worried because we know that the virus does not understand language. The sensible or who is responsible enough to know that this sickness can kill. So having said this, Mr. Speaker, I am saying that we are worried and we are supporting this motion to say, yes, the situation is here now, but how do we manage it? Somebody has come into Nigeria, the person has this virus, the person is quarantined, it's under investigation. And I've seen the Lagos governor trying to walk around the clock to try to do something. I've seen also Minister of Health, even though people are talking about seat. What is problem with seat? Is the seat the problem now of what the message is passing? For me, it doesn't matter. Is under that condition, will he be going to look for a conducive seat that is executive for him to address Nigerians? So that one shouldn't even come on the floor of this house. The message is simple. We are worried and something drastic has to be done. Mr. Speaker, with your kind permission, let me just round up. Last week, the Senate moved a motion concerning this, and they talked about the way the handlers are handling these things at the airport, that we are not just serious. That where he traveled to South Africa, they had to come inside that plane and then check people before they disembark. Why don't we do it? And you see people just tell, okay, come, have I checked you? Okay, 21, 20. No, we should be more serious than that, because the virus is serious as any deadly disease, very lethal. So, Mr. Speaker, I am calling on the people that are working at the airport to be serious and let them do something proactive. Don't wait until people disembark. You can enter that plane, check people properly so that you'll be able to take people from there, because you are talking about, some people are saying, oh, somebody, they had, of course I heard from Minister of Health that some of the people that we are contacting, either they don't have their phone number or they give numbers that you are not reachable. So that's the situation. So this is the kind of things that we take into consideration. So we go there and nip it at the bud. Don't wait until people enter into our street, enter into our market, enter into National Assembly before you start to fish them out. We should go to the port of entry and start. And of course, the contract, the index cases, they should also trace them and make sure that people are quarantined. And of course, because the time now is about 21 days, that means this disease is serious and it should be taken seriously. I support the mover of this motion, and I believe that every honorable member will support it.
Respected colleagues, we will now take amendments. The first amendment is from Honorable Engineer Solomon Mare.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I remain Engineer Solomon Bulus Maren, and I represent the good people of Mangu Bokos Federal Constituency. Mr. Speaker, I'm from Plateau State, the home of peace and tourism. Mr. Speaker, having said all, I want to move that we urge the federal government to convene an emergency National Council on Health to acquaint all health workers with measures to be put in place across the states and local governments to curtail the spread of coronavirus disease in our country. I so move, Mr. Speaker. Thank you.
Any seconder? Yes, Honorable.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Once again, I'm Honorable Chike John Okafo. I represent the people of Ehime Mbano, Ituboma Obo Federal Constituency from Imo State. I rise to second that very important amendment to the motion. I so second, Mr. Speaker.
Those in favor of the amendment say aye. Those against say nay. The ayes have it. Second amendment is from Honorable Ndudi Milelu.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I remain Honorable Ndudi Godwin Elmelu, and I represent the good people of Anocho Federal Constituency. I'm from Delta State. I have two amendments. One is urge the entire National Assembly to embark on 2 weeks suspension of plenary to enable the management of National Assembly put measures in place to take care of the ravaging surge of this coronavirus. Secondly, mandate the House committees on health, house services, and internal security, respectively, to ensure compliance. I so move.
Any seconder? Honorable Chinyere.
Mr. Speaker, I am Chinyere Igwe. I represent Port Harcourt Federal Constituency of Rivers State. Mr. Speaker, my dear colleagues, I second the motion as heavily moved by Honorable Ndudi Elmelu that the National Assembly should adjourn to give room for placement.
Just do your secondment here. Those in favor of the amendment say aye. Those against say nay. The ayes have it. Those in favor of the motion as amended say aye. Those against say nay. The ayes have it. Respected colleagues, the first order of the day is a commencement of the debate on the general principle of a bill for an act to prohibit chemical and biological weapons and establish a national authority for effective implementation of chemical and biological weapons conventions in Nigeria and for related matters. Standing now on Honorable Namdas Abrazak Saad, all members will recall that the bill was read the first time on Tuesday, 25th February 2020, and now invite Honorable Namdas to move that the bill be read the second time.
Mr. Speaker, Honorable Namdas requested me to step down the second consideration of the bill, second read of the bill. I apply that bill be stepped down by the leave of the House.
Bill stepped down by the leave of the House. Respected colleagues, the second order of the day is a commencement of debate on the general principle of a bill for an act to amend the Labour Act Cap L1 Laws Federation of Nigeria 2004 to prohibit and minimize casualization of workers after 6 months of engagement by employers in Nigeria, outsourcing employment in core areas of operation, and for related matters. Standing now, Honorable Tahsil Raji. Honorable members will recall that the bill was read the first time on Tuesday, 21st January 2020. I now invite Honorable Raji to move that the bill be read the second time.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. My name is Wale Raji. I represent a federal constituency of Lagos State. I rise to move the motion that we consider and read a bill seeking to amend the Labour Act a bill for an act to amend the Labour Act to prohibit and criminalize casualization of workers after 6 months of engagement by employers in Nigeria, outsourcing employment in core areas of operation and other related matters. I so move, Mr. Speaker. Thank you.
Seconder. Yes, sir.
Thank you, Right Honorable Speaker, honorable colleagues. My name is Honorable Gono Zribu. I represent the good people of Umkwere, Isu, Nwangala, Ninjaba Federal Constituency. Mr. Speaker, I'm from Imo State. Mr. Speaker, I rise to second this bill as moved by my colleague, Honorable Wale. Thank you.
Hello? Those in favor of the motion say aye. Those against say nay. Please lead the debate.
I said it silently. Mr. Speaker, my name is Wale Raji once again. I represent a peripheral constituency of Lagos State. Mr. Speaker, before us is a bill seeking to amend the Nigerian Labour Act to prohibit and criminalize casualization of workers after 6 months of engagement by employers in Nigeria, and also prohibiting and criminalizing outsourcing of employment in core areas of operation of an employer and other related matters. Mr. Speaker, one of the major problems confronting Nigerian workers today is the problem of casualization and outsourcing of employment in core areas of the business of employers. And this is an obnoxious practice that has rendered many of Nigerian workers in state of disguised unemployment, because in most times these employers, they engage these workers under very deplorable conditions and terms of employment, and they have taken advantage of lacuna in the Labour Act, and this amendment is seeking to, one, abolish casualization and also criminalize casualization, and also abolishing outsourcing of jobs within employers' core areas of business and criminalizing same. Presently, Section 7 of the Labour Act provides that not later than 3 months after the engagement of a worker, the employer shall give him a written statement of employment containing the terms and conditions of employment. However, under the extant law, there is no adequate consequence for non-compliance, and employers of labor have taken advantage of this, and that is why it is not uncommon to find workers in the banking industry, in the telecoms industry, and even in the oil and gas, that they are employed and remain casualized for so many years. And some of them, when their services are dispensed of, irrespective of the number of years that they have spent in employment, at the whims and caprices of the employers. So generally, a worker is said to be in a state of unemployment when he is being employed or having a job. It can also be said to be a state in which a person employed is remunerated for work done. Also, in some employment, employees will receive benefits in addition to payments such as health insurance, housing, disability insurance, etc. But the issue of casualization has been exploited by the Nigerian employers such that these workers, category of workers, do not get full benefits, that they are entitled to. Now, the act, the amendments we are seeking is one to by adding to section, a new section 8, which states as follows: that every worker in Nigeria engaged or employed by and has remained in such employment for a period of not less than 6 months shall have his employment or engagement regularized by the employer as a full and permanent staff of such employer with all its accompanying entitlements. And 2, any employer, subsection 2 of section 8, the new addition requires that any employer who disengages a worker after a period of 6 months from the date of first engagement without regularizing the worker's employment, as in subsection 1 of this section, shall at the date of disengagement pay the full salary and all allowances and entitlement due to a permanent staff for 6 months, as if the worker had been a permanent staff in the employment of the employee for 6 months immediately preceding the date of disengagement, provided the worker has not been found liable of any criminal act involving fraud resulting to financial losses to the company. Now, notwithstanding section 23 of this act, failure to comply with the provisions of subsection 1, 2, and 2 above is an offense, and the employer, in the case of natural person, shall be liable on conviction to a fine not exceeding 2 million naira, or to imprisonment of a period of 2 years, or to both such fine and imprisonment as the court may deem fit without prejudice to the right of the workers to see full entitlements as provided under this section. Now, it also, the other section of the other part of the amendment, which deals with outsourcing of employment, of jobs in an employer's core area of business, provides that, notwithstanding section 25 of this act, an employer who obtains the minister's license, employment outsourcing, minister's license, employment outsourcing by such employer within its core areas of operation is hereby prohibited. What this is saying is that if you obtain a license to operate a business, say for instance banking, and you now outsource your jobs within your core area of business, you are committing an offense. And what this, in summary, what this amendment is seeking is, one, to stop the obnoxious practice of casualization in the manner, as is presently being experienced, particularly in the major, the major sectors of Nigerian economy, such as the banking industry, the telecoms industry, even in government. We have a situation that workers remain in employment for upward of 5, 6, 7, even up to 10 years. Up to 10 years, and they remain casualized. So the other aspect, which is banning the outsourcing of employment, for instance, in the bank, it's not uncommon to find tellers in the banks being casualized or outsourced staff. So, Mr. Speaker, my colleagues, I seek your support for this amendment to this to the Labour Act, such as to make the environment labor environment more conducive and beneficial to Nigerian workers. Mr. Speaker, my colleagues, that's my presentation, and I seek your support. Thank you.
Igwe. Mr. Speaker, my dear colleague, I am Chinyere Igwe. I represent Port Harcourt Federal Constituency of River State. Mr. Speaker, the amendment are proposed by my brother, Mr. Speaker, is not only apt, but it is timely. Timely in the sense that, just like he has started some sectors where casualization has become the order of the day, I want to draw the attention of this hallowed chamber that in the oil sector, the casualization there is more than the employed staff. As I speak, Mr. Speaker, there's a class action that people are bringing up with a view to compelling the oil companies to stop casualization. You will find out that somebody will be in employment for 25 years, casual, 30 years, casual. At the end of the day, nothing to go for the person. So, Mr. Speaker, my dear colleagues, I want us to please let us support this bill so that the issue of casualization will end in Nigeria and our employees will have a life for tomorrow. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Yes, sir.
Thank you, Right Honorable Speaker. Honorable colleagues, my name is Julius Babos Opondi. I represent the very wonderful people, kind people of British Federal Constituency, Mr. Speaker. I'm an Izon man from Delta State. Mr. Speaker, I rise to add my voice to the amendment of the Labour Act. Mr. Speaker, my concern is very direct. I may not be familiar with the processes and procedures of casualization in other firms, but I'm very certain about how it is being operated in the oil sector. Mr. Speaker, a man's life, the productive lifespan of every young man is between the age of 18, 20 to 35. But Mr. Speaker, I can stand here to tell you for free that 80% or more of all the people that are being employed in the oil sector are being casualized. They will put in 20 years, 10 years, 15 years, then after some time, they will be laid off without any benefit. If I will be specific, Mr. Speaker, honorable colleagues, this is predominantly happening in Shell and Chevron, oil companies. I remember some time ago when I went to Bonny Island with the chairman of Oil and Gas Committee, and we saw a young man whom has imputed 12 years as a casual staff, working without any projection or any hope of getting benefit at the end of the day. Mr. Speaker, it's even very bad that some of these indigenous people are the people that suffer the most. For instance, Mr. Speaker, if you are in the Niger Delta, you will see that the company will employ maybe 20 persons from the host communities and will keep them for a very long period of time without them being staff of the company. Mr. Speaker, they bring up every program to train and inject them into the oil company. After they must have successfully gone through the program and passed very well, they will not be engaged as staff. Instead, their counterpart from other parts of the country will be engaged. So, Mr. Speaker, I think that if we must be very honest, the labor law must be amended and it must reflect, particularly, the host communities to the oil companies. I know that it happens in every sphere of government, even in government, in the banking sector, it happens. But my concern is the oil companies who must take it as an habit to ensure that they enslave every young man. They will keep them there for a very long time, no benefits, no pension, nothing, no employment later. They will just be working there like slaves to the oil companies. Mr. Speaker, I want to say that this House, thank God for this motion. It is very timely that if we must make progress in this country, we must help employment. People should put in their very reasonable time, prime their time, productive time into a job, and must reap the benefit after they must have done that. not putting 20 years of your youthful age into a company, and at the end of the day, you are laid off, no benefit. So, Mr. Speaker, I support this bill. Now, this bill should be supported by honorable members so that you see that of the day, so that our young men will have hope when they are working for the country in Nigeria. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Ogeni.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, for recognizing me to speak on this issue. My name is Honorable Ogene Ego. I represent the good people of Amuodo Federal Constituency. Mr. Speaker, I'm a Lagosian. This issue that was raised by our colleague is a very important one. Casualization of workers. The result is that most companies now, especially foreign firms, all their workers are casual. You will have a worker who will work for 6 months, who will work for 1 year, who will work for even 10 years. He's doing so well, but you make it casual. All of it is just an attempt to maximize profit. Regularly, we read the American Employment Index. Some months, about 200,000 people will be employed in the US, some months 300,000, some months 170,000. That way we can know how the economy is growing. But here, because of casualization, you can never know the number of people that are employed. I'm aware that, casualization is a tool that management uses once in a while to address some short-term measures. But it should not be a permanent thing. What is happening in Nigeria today is that casualization is a permanent thing. All the banks are very guilty of this. If you don't need the worker, why will you keep somebody for 3, 4, 5 years as a casual worker? If he's not doing well, why are you employing him? And I dare say that what is happening is that in the banks, some top management staff of the banks who want to make money will now employ people as casual. They will be paid the full salary the worker is supposed to earn. They put the balance in their pocket and pay the people pictures. That is also what is happening in the oil company. I think this man's inhumanity to man. And I think that these green chambers are the only people who can correct this oppression of our people. If you don't need a worker, don't apply. But to employ a worker and keep him for years as casual, at the end of the day, you throw him out, you don't pay him pension, he has no medical, he has no benefit in the company, I think it's wicked. And this is done by in an industry where there's so much profit, in an industry where so much money is being made. The top management staff, the directors, they smile to the back. Whereas the people who are doing the work are left to rotting away as casual. I think this is very unfair. A situation where a man works in a bank or in an oil company or in the telecom industry, yet you cannot pay the school fees of your children. You cannot feed your family, you cannot build a house. Meanwhile, the company is making billions of profit. I want to urge my colleagues to rally around. Let us support the mover of this bill so that this casualization, will stop in Nigeria. We cannot continue to have this kind of ill-treatment. Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. My name is Ade Adeogun. I represent Akoko Southeast Southwest Federal Constituency. I'm from Ondo State. Mr. Speaker, I want to commend the initiator of this bill and lend my voice to it. Casualization is just another word for apartheid in the workplace. In Nigeria, it's prevalent in the banking industry, in the oil sector, and then it's part of the telecom sector. You have a situation in which people work for 10 years and they get to work one day and find out that their keys can no longer open their offices because they've been laid off as casuals. You have people who are engaged to work. They do the core work. But even in the workplace, they cannot go to the same place where those who work with them go to. They can't enter the same lift. They can't eat in the same place. They don't earn the same salaries. They're treated differently. It is one in which some Nigerians are just mere slaves, while some are treated as kings in a workplace where people work equally. And I think it's a bad precedent. At the time the issue of casualization was started in Nigeria, it was meant to be short-term measure. 1 month, 2 months, 3 months to fill gaps. But what you have in these industries now is that they're using casualization and outsourcing especially as ways of lowering costs and shying away from their responsibilities to our Nigerian workers. So I want to lend my voice to this, and I plead for my colleagues to please give it expedited support. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. My dear colleagues, I'm TJ Yusuf. I represent the people of Kaba, Bunu, Ijumo Federal Constituency from Kogi State. Mr. Speaker, dear colleagues, I rise to support this bill to be apt, timely. If I will even say it's overdue. Mr. Speaker, there's no better word to describe what is going on than say wickedness, absurd, which they employ people as casual workers. You work for like 3-4 years. They are sacked. They are made to reapply. You work for another 3-4 years. They are sacked, you will reapply. So you have somebody working in an industry for over 10 years and is not due for any entitlement. Mr. Speaker, there's another dimension to reach. They call it outsourcing. They got a company. The company will warehouse all the vacancies. So you're working for a particular company, but you do not have a direct employment or a direct access to that company. So when you have issue, they disown you, that they don't know you, because ab initio, you were not employed primarily by that company. Mr. Speaker, my dear colleagues, what this law seeks to do is to amend the Labor Act and make it impossible for people to engage in this act. If you are going to employ people temporarily for a specific job and has a time frame defined, it's understandable. But when you find banks, oil companies running for the past 30-40 years business and they would refuse to employ their people. Unfortunately, government agencies are doing that. I am aware of a government agency that have employed some graduates in the last 3 years as casual workers. Meanwhile, on their budget, they have everything required for these workers as permanent workers. So somebody somewhere use the casualization procedure to take what belongs to these workers rightfully. My dear colleagues, I appeal to us, for the sake of those who invested their vote and time to bring us here, that this bill will help cure this abnormal social malaise that have become a norm and a procedure. Unfortunately for us, we've not been able to have the mind, the gut, the commitment to make sure that our laws are obeyed, especially by foreigners. If you check, Mr. Speaker, my dear colleague, if you make effort to check, casualization is common more with foreign companies. They come into Nigeria, appropriate your profit and repatriate back. There's no country in the world that grow that way. The citizenry must have confidence, they must have trust, they must have this conviction that there are procedures and law to secure them from being exploited. My dear colleagues, I appeal to us to support this bill. Let me contribute our culture. Let it be on record that the Ninth Assembly did this for the Nigerian workforce. Thank you.
I should put the question. Those in favor of the motion that the bill be read second time, say aye. Those against, say nay. That serve it. Clerks is invited to read the long title of the bill.
Honorable Speaker, honorable members, the bill for now to amend the Labour Act, Chapter L1, Laws of the Federation of Nigeria 2004, to prohibit and criminalize casualization of workers after 6 months of engagement by employers in Nigeria, outsourcing employment in core areas for operation and for related matters. Second reading.
Bill referred to Committee on Labour, Employment and Productivity. Respected colleagues, the third order of the day is a motion calling on the federal government to supply electricity by connecting Gashaka, Kurmi as a Downer Federal Constituency to the national grid. Standing in the name of Honorable David Abel, all members, Honorable Abel is writing with the motion. Move for the stepping down of the motion. That's all.
Mr. Speaker, the honourable member is not on the floor. I apply that the motion be stepped down by the leader of the House. I so move.
Motion stepped down by the leader of the House. Respected colleagues, the fourth order of the day is a motion on need to address erosion problem affecting 19 communities in Dutim Mark Federal Constituency of Katsina, standing Honorable Amaya Abdul Kadir. Honorable Abdul Kadir is inviting the motion.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Honorable colleagues, my name is Armaya Abdul Kadir. I represent Dutim Mark Federal Constituency. I'm from Katsina State. I rise to move a motion on the need to address erosion problems affecting 19 communities in Dutim Federal Constituency of Katsina State. The House notes that over the years, erosion has caused serious damages in communities of Kurufi, Kawari, Sauri, Birichi, Barkia, Urma, Rawayau, Dogwarua, Kurechin Plani, Kurechin Die, Gangaran Wakaji, Chediatara, Dagelawai, Sawa, Karopi, Jaka, Kundua, and Dangao of Dutim Federal Constituency of Katsina State. Worried that the damages being caused to the soil surface in the communities have made it extremely difficult for the dwellers in those communities to engage in farming, which is their major occupation, a development that has seriously affected the income of the farmers and has led to a great reduction in food supply in the area. Also worried that erosion has cut up the roads linking the towns and villages within one another, those making transportation very difficult in the area, and this has also affected commercial activities in the federal constituency. Concerned that many of the houses affected by erosion in those communities have collapsed, while many more are likely to be affected if erosion continues to ravage the various communities in the federal constituency. Cognizant that if the federal government and the Ecological Fund Office do not take urgent measures to intervene and control erosion in the aforementioned communities, it will continue to cause more damages and prolong the suffering of the people in the various communities. Resolves to 1. Urge the Ecological Fund Office to carry out immediate assessment of the communities affected by erosion in Dutim Federal Constituency in order to know the level of damage in each community. 2. Also urge the federal government and the Ecological Fund Office to render financial assistance to the farmers and people affected by erosion in Dutim Federal Constituency. Again, urge the Federal Ministry of Environment and Ecological Fund Office to take necessary measures to control the erosion ravaging the various communities. 4. Mandate the committees on ecological funds and environment to ensure compliance. I so move, Mr. Speaker.
Yes, Zamfara.
Mr. Speaker, my honorable colleagues, my name is Mohammed Bargaja, presenting East Assam Bini Plenary constituency. I stand to second the motion read by Honorable Amiyawu. Mr. Speaker, I also second.
Respected colleagues, this is an infrastructure related motion, so I put the question. Those in favor of the motion say aye. Those against say nay. That's have it. Motion referred to the relevant committees of the House. Respected colleagues, the fifth order of the day is a motion on need to repair Isu Mwahu Armaju Gully erosion in Ikwere Isu in the Jaba constituency of Imo State, sending the Honorable Oguna on Ozungo is invited to put the motion.
Thank you, Right Honorable Speaker, Honorable colleagues. My name is Honorable Gono Ziribu. Mr. Speaker, I represent the good people of Nkwere, Isu, Njab and Wangele Federal Constituency, and I'm from Imo State. Mr. Speaker, Honorable colleagues, with me is a motion for urgent need to repair the Isu Umanu Amaju Amiibo Gully erosion at Nkwere, Isu Wangele Njab Federal Constituency of Imo State. Ladies Honorable House know that the impact of gully relations in Nigeria is adverse, and the attendant ecological, economic, environmental, and humanitarian disaster it unleashes on erosion-ravaged villages and communities in Nigeria have been described as unimaginable. Ladies Honorable House also know that unchecked erosion sites are death traps which also lead to loss of infrastructures, including roads, houses, agricultural land and vegetation, citation in rivers leading to flooding and increased segmentation of our waterways. Let this Honorable House further note that the Isu Umanu Amaju Gully erosion at Nkwere Isu Wangele Njaba Federal Constituency covers over 1 kilometer with alarming depth of about 20 feet below surface land. The gully erosion exists within and around dwelling houses and farmlands of people of Isu, Ezamobire, Ofaya, Omanu, and Amaju communities, and if left unchecked, may lead to national disaster. Let this House be informed that the next target of destruction by this gully erosion is the School of Health and Management Sciences, Amiibo, a tertiary institution in Wangele local government area. Also, 5 separate buildings are facing immediate threat of being submerged by the gully erosion if nothing is done immediately and before the coming rainy seasons. The Honorable House should also inform that the gully erosion has already destroyed farmlands, roads, agricultural produce of the affected communities who practice subsistence agriculture as their major source of livelihood. Hence, the gully erosion is inimical to their lives and economic survival. Let this Honorable House do resolve that we hold the Ecological Fund Office to immediately repair the Isu Umanu Amaji Amiibo gully erosion in Nkwere, Isu Wangele Njaba Federal Constituency. Also, we should also mandate the House Committee on Ecological Fund to ensure that this gully erosion is repaired expeditiously. I so move, Mr. Speaker.
This is an infrastructure-related motion, so I'll just second and put the question. Yes, sir. Delta.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Francis Ejirogane Waives, my name. I represent the entire people of Ughelli North, Ughelli South, and Udu. I'm from Delta State. I rise to second the motion ably moved by my friend and brother, Honorable Ugona Ozuribo. I so second.
Those in favor of the motion say aye. Those against say nay. That's have it. Motion referred to the 11 committees of the House. Respected colleagues, the 6th order of the day is a motion on a call to save wildlife and plant species to improve conservation and tourism potentials as the world marks the World Life Day, standing in Honorable Nkiruka. Honorable Nkiruka is invited to move the motion.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I am Kiruka Onejo. I represent the good people of Isukwatu Federal Constituency. I am from Abia State. Mr. Speaker, Honorable colleagues, I move for call to save wildlife and plant species to improve conservation and tourism potential as the world marks the World Wildlife Day. The House notes that the Endangered Species Control of International Trade and Traffic Act, Cap E9 laws of the Federation of Nigeria 2004 provides for the conservation and management of Nigerians' wildlife and the protection of some of her endangered species that are facing the threat of extinction as a result of overexploitation as required under certain international treaties for which Nigeria is signatory to. The House also notes that the National Parks Service Act establishes the National Park Service to be responsible for the preservation, enhancement and protection of wild animals and plants and other vegetation in national parks. The House is aware that protected areas, that is national parks, game reserves, forest reserves, biosphere reserves, game sanctuaries and strict nature reserves were established in different locations within vast expanse of forest land, hills, rivers and seas, where animals, plant species in their natural habitats are conserved and regulated for specific scientific, educative and recreational benefits. The House is also aware that the poor and deplorable state of protected areas require urgent attention considering the number of national parks, game reserves, forest reserves, biosphere reserves, game sanctuaries, and strict nature reserves across the country, and the huge government investment in the areas of staff, unemployment, and other ancillary services. The House is further aware that there has been large-scale destruction and management of the ecosystem in Nigeria and ecological disasters and climate change, which have resulted in acute loss of soil fertility, and countless species of fauna and flora have gone into extinction, meaning that dozens of species are going extinct every single day. The House is worried that the world wild flora and fauna are endangered due to human activities, which include loss of habitat, industrialized farming, commercial development, and overgrazing, with protected areas becoming hideouts for bandits, kidnappers, insurgents, and other criminals. The House is also worried that wildlife destruction, loss of habitat are on the increase as a result of human activities, such that large mammals, aquatic life, and plant species are going into extinction due to lack of capacity, poaching, trekking in animal hides, tusk, technical know-how, and other bureaucratic bottlenecks to manage the sector. The House is cognizant that preservation of our ecosystem and effective management of the sector will attract tourism, which will in turn generate huge reserves and revenues for Nigeria, if properly strengthened and funded. The House is also cognizant that the World Life Day is celebrated today, March 3rd, 2020, and every 3rd of March every year. And the day was set aside to draw attention to the urgent need to save the endangered species. And this year's theme is sustaining all life on Earth, which is a clarion call on government agencies, scientists, and all stakeholders to mobilize action to serve the ecosystem. The House resolves to urge the Federal Ministry of Environment and its agencies to conduct an assessment of protected areas across the country for strengthening and proper funding. The House also urged the Federal Ministry of Environment to prepare short and long-term action plans to improve the sector and forward them to the House for consideration. The House also mandated the Committee on Environment to ensure implementation. I so move, Mr. Speaker.
Seconder. Amuming.
Honorable Speaker, right honorable colleagues, my name is Rabbi Ari Mohammed Abdul Mumin. I represent Nasrau Toto, Federal Constituency. Mr. Speaker, sir, I rise to second the motion. Heavily moved by my sister colleagues. I so second.
I don't know, the motion seems to be very elaborate. If you want to give the synopsis, 2 minutes. Then we'll put the question.
Mr. Speaker, today is 3rd March, and it is the World Wildlife Day. Mr. Speaker, honorable colleagues, on 20th of December 2013, the United Nations General Assembly adopted 3rd March of every year to celebrate and raise awareness on the world's wild animals and plants to improve the environment and ecosystem. Mr. Speaker, this year's theme is sustaining all life. That is including the life of animals and plants. Of course, we know about green revolution. So it's a call for us as government to begin to look at the areas of our forest reserves, and particularly at this point where most of the forest reserves are used by bandits. Nigeria has 7 national parks, 30 game reserves, 4 game sanctuaries, 1 strict nature reserve, 1 biosphere reserve, and about 1,129 forest reserves. And Mr. Speaker, honorable colleagues, because we do not maintain these reserves, hoodlums have taken over those parks. In Abuja here, most of our national parks are used by prostitutes, by people who are taking drugs, by people who are using it as makeshift camp to organize crimes. And it may interest you to know that currently most of the locations like Sambisa Forest, Beningwari, and other forest reserves are used by insurgents as we speak. So that is why it is important that as we mark this day, that we should look at these places so that we begin to use them and utilize them for what purpose it is meant for, so that it will be fit for purpose. Once it is fit for purpose, hoodlums, insurgents will not be there. And Mr. Speaker, that is why as we join the United Nations and all over all the countries of the world to say today is to sustain all lives, we should also be using it to look at how to change our environment so that our environment will be safe instead of leaving what is supposed to be a tourist area, a reserved area where we use for our own good, for people to turn it to whatever they find it because it has been neglected. That's why, Mr. Speaker, honorable colleagues, I seek for support that we should join my voice with the voice of Nigerians to preserve and to celebrate this day. Thank you.
Respected colleagues, I now put the question. Those in favor of the motion say aye. Those against say nay. The ayes have it. Leader, I suppose It's time for a break. Oh, go ahead. Is it the period of the house? We should go ahead. Continue. Thank you. Respected colleagues, the seventh order of the day is a motion on need to investigate the destruction of homes and properties at Umuo, Odifin Federal Constituency of Lagos State by naval officer standing now Honorable Ogene. Honorable Ogene is invited to move the motion.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, for giving me the opportunity to speak on this issue that touches on the lives and properties of our people. My name is Honorable Ogene Ego. I represent the very good and peaceful people of Amuodofi Federal Constituency, Lagos State. Mr. Speaker, I'm a Lagosian. I move a motion on the need to investigate the destruction of homes and properties at Amuodofi Federal Constituency, Lagos State, by some naval officers. The House notes that the people of Abule Glass, Abule Elekpa, Bobokoji, Idumagoro, Babakati, Kopembe, Akaraba, Inegbe, Abulo Kamaru, Abule Alpha, Sokoto, not the one of, this is Sokoto of Lagos, Laje, Sopo Beach, Kobena Beach, and the Lashe Beach, which are over 60 communities. The people there are indigenous communities and residents of the area in Amuodofi Federal Constituency, Lagos State, who have lived there for over 300 years. The House knows that on the 15th of January 2020, there were unprecedented attacks which led to the destruction of properties in the above areas that were orchestrated by unknown person wearing naval uniforms. Informed that residents of those communities in the riverine areas of Amuodofi, Lagos State, woke up to see bulldozers and caterpillars fully protected by people in naval uniform, storming the areas and destroying houses and properties of those indigenous communities that have traditional rulers and ballets. Worried that no notice whatsoever was given to them as they were taken unawares and could not salvage any of their property before they were crushed into rubble and they were then sent out of their lands. Concerned that the displaced persons of these communities, numbering over 10,000 men, women, and children, includes Obas and Bales, are now stranded without being paid any compensation. Aware that the people that carried out the ejection and the destruction of properties claimed that it was due to illegal oil bunkering activities being carried out in the affected communities. Observes that even if there were illegal oil bunkering activity in the area, it was not everybody in the community that was involved, and therefore it was unfair that whole communities who have been living in this place for hundreds of years were punished for the offense of a few unruly hoodlums in the area. Resolved to urge the House to set up ad hoc committee to find out the remote and immediate cause of the mayhem in order to provide remedy for the problem and compensate the people who were displaced, and also identify the perpetrators of illegal oil bunkering activities for sanctions to be meted out to them to avoid the repeat of such a disorderly behavior. I so move, Mr. Speaker.
Any seconder? Yes. Imo.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Honorable colleagues, my name is Honorable Princess Miriam Odinaka Ono. I represent the good people of Isa Alambano, Onemo, Okigwe Federal Constituency. I'm from Imo State. I rise to second this motion, ably moved by my colleague. I so second.
Honorable Guinea, in 1 minute, it's an investigative motion, so we're not going to debate it. and it borders also on security, if I understand the content of your presentation very well. So in 1 minute, give us the synopsis of the motion. You just delayed the motion. Some facts that I thought you should reveal to us. Those in favor of the motion say aye. Those against say nay. That's have it. Respected colleagues, the eighth order of the day is a motion on the need to check the rise of drugs insecurity and encourage indigenous production of drugs in Nigeria. Standing now, Honorable Dennis Idahosa. Honorable Idahosa is invited to make the motion.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker, distinguished colleagues. My name is Honorable Dennis Idahosa. I represent the good people of Ovia Federal Constituency. Mr. Speaker, I'm from the heartbeat of the nation, Edo State. I rise to move a motion on the need to check the rise of drug insecurity and to encourage indigenous production of drug in Nigeria. The House are aware that Nigeria is largely dependent on China, among other countries, for importation of active and non-active ingredients for production of drug. The House are aware that China has recently been inflicted with a coronavirus that has paralyzed its economy, thus rendering it unable to produce or export these necessary ingredients or medicine. The House recall that the DG of NAFDAC, in an event on the 18th of February 2020, raised an alarm that the outbreak of coronavirus in China has the capacity to result in an uprise of drug insecurity. The House also recall that one of Nigeria's national drug policy's targets was the increase in local production capacity to a level where 70% of the total output satisfy at least 60% of the national drug requirements of essential drug, while the balance is exported by 2008. And Mr. Speaker, distinguished colleagues, we are still in 2020, we've not been able to meet up to that requirement. Cognizant of the fact that Nigeria does not produce drug locally or the ingredients to make these drugs on a large commercial scale, and that Nigeria import of 70% of drug majorly from China. Also cognizant that even when coronavirus is eradicated in future, Nigeria should continue to take a bold step in encouraging made in Nigeria drug, especially as a part of its policies to encourage locally made drugs. Resolve: mandate the Committee on Health Institution, Healthcare Services, Science and Tech to organize a roundtable discussion to profile costs for development of local-made drugs. 2, urge the federal government to invest more in National Institute for Pharmaceutical Research and Development to encourage local and indigenous research, as well as revisit the national drug policy as a way to promote and boost our medical industry. Mandate the Committee on Legislative Compliance to ensure compliance. I so move, Mr. Speaker. Thank you.
Seconder. Yes.
Thank you, Honorable Speaker. Honorable members, my name is Kwamoti Bitrus Lowry, representing Numan Jamsa Lamode Federal Constituency. I second the motion as moved by my colleague, Honorable Dennis. I so second.
Honorable Dosa, lead the debate.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. distinguished colleagues, my name again is Honorable Dennis Idahosa. I represent the good people of Ovia Federal constituency. Mr. Speaker, I thank you very much. The issue of drug insecurity in our country is a very serious issue. Mr. Speaker, it is important to admit the truth that to ourselves that the drug insecurity is looming over Nigeria and must be treated with issue of seriousness. And also, Mr. Speaker, I want to draw your attention to the fact that if we continue with the way the country is going in terms of pharmaceutical production within the country, we are going to face a very, very serious problem. Mr. Speaker, distinguished colleagues, if it is possible, I think it is time to declare a state of emergency on pharmaceutical sector. Because, Mr. Speaker, the drug insecurity in the nation is a threat to our nation. And it is very, very important that we treat this issue as issue of matter of very important issue that will, if we continue with the way things are going, Mr. Speaker, I'm so scared that a time will come that we will not even have enough drugs for patients within the country. And like what I stated in my motion, the issue now in China has given us a kind of eye-opener to look at alternatives, that if we continue in a situation that would depend on another country to take care of our immediate needs in terms of active and non-active drugs within, for our patients within the country, is a very serious issue, Mr. Speaker. And let me also draw your attention to it that if it is possible for we to look for alternative, like to invest on our petrochemical sector, so that we'll be able to produce our job locally without depending in other countries. Mr. Speaker, and honorable members, I want you to support this motion in a situation like this in a country, and I need the support of all members. Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. Thank you.
You will put a question? Those in favor of the motion say aye. Those against say nay. That's have it. Respected colleagues, the ninth order of the day is a motion on need to control indiscriminate use of drugs and narcotics by Nigerian youth. Standing now, Honorable Olubumi Gunola is invited, or Gunola is invited for the motion. Look.
Okay. No. 50. Mr. Speaker, fellow distinguished honorable members in the House, Omowumi Olubumi Ogunlola, I'm representing all the people of Ijeru, Ekiti West, Efon. I'm from Ekiti State. I stand up to move the motion on the need to control indiscriminate use of drugs and narcotics by Nigerian youth. The House notes that drugs and narcotics are manufactured for use to combating health challenges, and wrongful usage of drugs is contrary to the purpose